The short run is more difficult, and I think we have to be recognize we're in for a long, difficult problem. Things have not even reached the bottom. One of the problems that we face is not only have we lost confidence in our financial institutions, we've lost confidence in those who are supposed to be managing our economy. I can tell you for a fact, they were going around Europe, for instance, G8, 7 meetings, and saying, last May, saying we've turned the corner, things are turning up, things are going well. Clearly, they were either doing a sales job or they didn't understand. But in either case, why should anybody listen to these guys again? They've been so consistently wrong. So there is this crisis of confidence. The problems are going to get worse. We're only about halfway through the fall in the housing prices. As housing prices go down, more foreclosures will occur. Halfway through, assuming we don't overshoot. That is to say, when you have a bubble, when the bubble breaks, you don't typically go back to the normal level. You go further down and then you bounce back up. So things may be even worse than what I just suggested if there is overshooting. Secondly, states and localities are facing serious problems. Revenues are plummeting. Here in New York City, New York State, depends very heavily on revenues from the financial sector. It's plummeted. But states and localities have what I call it a balanced budget framework. When revenues go down, they have to cut back expenditures. And as they cut back expenditures, the economy goes further down. I said several months ago that the first agenda in stimulus ought to be to make up for the shortfall in this state and local revenues, because if you don't, you're going to have downward pressure on the economy, cutback of services to the poor, cutback of investments that would be the basis of long-term economic growth. But the Bush administration decided to give a tax cut. They think the tax cut is a solution to every problem. The tax cuts were part of the problem. The problem of America is not that we consume too little. With a savings rate of 0, how could anybody say that? Yet that was the solution that the Bush administration put forward. So the future cutbacks in state and local expenditures are going to depress the economy. As the banking sector faces problems, they're going to be more reluctant to lend, and as people see their houses price go down, they're going to be more reluctant to borrow. The lack of transparency means that even banks won't lend to each other. So if there's a bank with money, it's not going to be willing to lend to a bank with a problem because it doesn't know what the risks that it faces are. So I think we're, you might say, only in the first half of this game. And I would expect that the problems to continue to unfold. I think we're in a very difficult position because the people that we turn to traditionally have been the financial markets. And there are two reasons not to trust them at this point. First, they've shown enormous incompetence. Why should we trust these people who led us into the mess to get us out of it? Their judgments, their understanding of the economy is very, very limited. They understand how to make money in good times, how to protect themselves at the expense of their investors. They understand that. But we're talking about systemic and economic-wide phenomena. And they've clearly demonstrated a lack of competence in that area. And secondly, they have a vested interest. They want to protect their own future, and they're willing to let the economy go down. Repeatedly, the Secretary Treasurer tried to get Wall Street to come together and say, let's help Lehman Brothers. They said, no, we'd rather see the economy go down than to put our balance sheet at risk. So their interests are clearly divergent. Take Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. When we did the first bailout, it didn't work. when they did the first bailout. Right after that, Fannie Mae issued a dividend payment, putting the taxpayer even more at risk. They were taking money out as the government was saying, we'll put money in. I mean, unconscionable. So there's a clear divergence of interest, so we can't turn to them. We can't turn to political leaders that are dependent on money from the lobbyists from Wall Street, which is particularly true with the Republican Party in this coming election. So I think, unfortunately, that I think we have to turn to academics, people who've studied the matter, that don't have a vested interest other than the vested interest of making sure our economy functions well and our jobs are protected, you know, and our families, our houses don't go down. But it's that broader national interest that I think we really have to be protecting. And I don't think we can turn to Wall Street to get the answers.